Good afternoon to our Alzheimer's Advocacy Academy participants. Welcome back to our final session of the fiscal year, and welcome to everyone on board. Do we have Jessica Rothar with us? We're going to wait for Jessica, who's kicking us off today. Jessica, are you with us? All right. Well, we will proceed without Jessica and hope that she joins us. So a very special hello and Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. Greetings to all of you. We missed some of you last week when we weren't able to offer our session as planned, but we're back today, and we saw many of your pictures for the longest day over the weekend, and it looks like people had lots of fun and honored many people that we all love and hold dear. So going forward now, we're going to proceed with our program. And today, Jessica Rothar, when she does join us, is our facilitator. Jessica works for the Northern California and Northern Nevada chapter as our Senior Public Policy Manager. And we also are so delighted to have Kathy Maupin join us. Kathy is from Nevada, and she is an ambassador to Representative Mark Amodei. She's also a support group facilitator and does fundraising. She's one of those phenomenal volunteers who does it all.
I am here. Can you hear me, Susan?
Yes, Jessica, welcome and take it away.
Okay, I'm so sorry, everybody. My laptop died today, and so I'm joining you from my phone. We're going to talk about team planning for a successful year. And I know many of you have been doing team planning with us for a number of years, and we just want to keep building on what we've been doing. So I want to start with this first slide that shows the evolution of our ambassador program and our Alzheimer's congressional teams. So back in 2011, the Alzheimer's Association launched its ambassador program, and there was just a one-to-one relationship between the ambassador and the member of Congress. We didn't have a state champion program then, and we realized after a while, as the program was successful, that it was a lot of work for one person, and that if our message was that this disease affects a lot of people, and a lot of people across all different races, classes, communities, that we wanted to have more voices in the room with legislators. So we started to form the Alzheimer's congressional teams, but the ambassador was still, Susan, can you mute everybody who is not speaking? And can I ask everyone who is not speaking to mute yourselves, please? So the ambassadors with the teams, then in a way they had even more work because they were still the main contact, the primary contact for the legislator and their staff, and were the conduit for all communications with that office. And we were also asking them to build and manage volunteer teams. And so we've learned a few lessons since launching that program in 2014. One thing we learned is that having just an ambassador and one or two team members is probably not enough for doing the year-round multifaceted engagement that we want to do, but that 10 is too many, that quality of advocates is what matters more than the quantity. We also learned that it's challenging to figure out how to change our old model of having the ambassador do everything enough to give all of our advocacy volunteers meaningful things to do, because people who volunteer for advocacy want to have meaningful ways to take action and to support our mission. So this then takes us to 2020, and we're about to try something new, which is to try to flatten the structure a little bit of our advocacy teams so that the ambassador is one among equals, as opposed to that more hierarchical structure. And what we're looking at is giving the other team members more opportunities to contribute to the team and to take responsibility for doing specific things, and for also having all the team members build one-on-one relationships with the legislative staff in the district office and the legislator through those activities, so that when the ambassador steps down or retires, that it's not a struggle to find somebody new who can step into that role. Ideally, everybody on the team should have a relationship with the district office staff and the legislator. And of course, another goal for us is we do want to make sure that these teams represent the full diversity of the congressional districts that they're in, so that when we say African Americans are twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's as whites, or Latinos are 1.5 times as likely, so that there are African Americans and Latinos on the team in the room who can say, yes, this has happened to me and it's happening in my community. So for this coming fiscal year, which starts on July 1st, what we're proposing, what we'd like to do, is to meet with each of the Alzheimer's congressional teams so that we can plan this fiscal year together. And we'll be using a new planning worksheet that Susan's going to show in a slide, which will be familiar to those of you who've been doing this for a couple of years, except that what's going to be different this year is we're going to ask each of the team members to commit to doing specific activities in specific months, so that policy staff can then follow up to make sure, the month before your commitment, we can follow up with you to see what you need and make sure that you're still planning to do this. So it won't be all on the ambassadors to figure out how to engage your members or to, train people or give them the tools that they need. So we're proposing to hold team planning meetings in July and August. And some of the tactics, so policy staff all just got off a call just at 11 o'clock with our home office policy team. And we learned about their plans for this coming fiscal year, and some tactics that they do want us to continue to emphasize, because now we're in this digital world, is to take advantage of all these teletown halls that members of Congress are doing. So I don't know if Susan is showing the slide right now that shows before COVID, it was all about the in-person meetings. That was a really major way that team members got to participate and engage in activities. And those are not happening right now, and we don't know how long it will be until they happen again. So next slide, please. Now, the new normal is these virtual town halls, and we've organized some, and lots of members of Congress are doing lots of them. And it does have a kind of the good side, the silver lining, is it does have this kind of democratizing effect, where instead of just being in a room, one of, several hundred people with your member of Congress, if they're using Zoom and the association is going to move over to Zoom starting July 1st, they can see you and you can ask a question, and ideally they can see and hear your voice. Another tactic we want to use, as it's clear that digital media is becoming more and more important in our world, is you've all been doing a great job of tweeting. And I know that, many teams really have a designated tweeter, and that's been great. Video is really a tool we need to start using more. And kudos and thank you to everybody who's been doing that. I know my colleague Daniel Gaitan in Orange County has been doing that with some of his volunteers. I know many of you are great at it. It's a learning edge for me and for others, but we all are going to start learning together how to create good short videos and share them with our legislators via social media. And then a new area that the Home Office is asking us to focus on is advocate development. So we've already been asking teams to start meeting once or ideally twice a year. We're going to do more of that now, a beginning of the year planning meeting in July, and then halfway through the year, a combined maybe social planning get together by video if necessary, and hopefully in person again, and talk about and learn what kind of trainings we need, and we can organize those for you. Your staff partners can provide trainings for your team. So if it's on how to create short videos, we can all do that together. So now I want to turn to Kathy and ask Kathy to tell us a little bit about your team. You have a wonderful team, and you've done a beautiful job of engaging them and cultivating them. And I just want to ask you to share with folks a little bit how you've been doing that.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jessica. I actually think I have 3 teams, not just one. My congressional team is a team of 5, including me. It's a really nice size. You were talking earlier about 10 being too many. I used to have 10, and it's a great excuse to not do something. When you have 5 people, everyone is involved and they work together. So that's a really good size for me. I think it's really important to know your team members, as particularly their attributes and strengths. I have one who's terrific at social media, Mary. She's just great. I have a gentleman who loves to make phone calls. I hate making phone calls, so he gets to be the phone call person. I have 2 people who are wonderful at telling their stories. So our team, I like to write, so our team is diverse in our talents and specialties, and I think we work really well together. I begin each year with my team by taking them to dinner. We go out to BJ's and we order dinner and we catch up and see what we've been doing all summer. I make sure that my team members all have a packet of information, and I have this little packet here that I give to everyone. And what I do is I call it the Need to Know Everything packet. This packet has phone numbers, addresses, information about AIM, information about the congressman, how to make a report online. It has all of the bills that we're being asked to work on, fact sheets, statistics. So it's everything that I think that they will know and that I will need to know for the coming year. It saves so much time, so you don't have to constantly be running to the site to find information. In addition to this package of information, I send them emails a lot. For those of you who are not ambassadors, the ambassadors have a call every single month with Washington, D.C., and I use that call to then provide information to my team members. It comes the next day in the form of minutes, and they often have links so that you can just press on the link and send an email. So they're a great resource for me to actually send out to my team members and utilize their talents so that we're working together as a team. Just all of us send, for example, an email to Congressman Amadei, if that's what our ask is for that particular week or month. I'm also in a really unique position because I'm a facilitator. So my second team is my support group. And they are wonderful at telling stories that I can use in support of bills or asks when we go to meet the congressional team. I've also used my support group members to go to the state legislature. In fact, I've actually even taken them with me to Congressman Amadei's office to talk about things, for example, veterans issues. So I love to utilize this team, my support group team, to meet with and be a part of my congressional team. My third team, actually, I think, is Congressman Amadei's staff. I have met with every single member of his staff. They do not have one designated as a healthcare rep. So I decided I was going to meet with all of them. And so we have a wonderful relationship with his team of his staff, his team of members there. And so all three of my teams sort of coordinate and work with each other. I utilize them as resources, and I think it works really well together.
And I love how you talk about having, three teams. And while not everybody is a support group facilitator, we do have support groups in every legislative district. And that is a resource, not so much for members of the team, although possibly, but certainly for stories. And I would encourage people to, if you're interested in this, the way to proceed is talk to your policy staff partner, and they can reach out to the person on the staff team who manages all the support groups and ask them if it would be okay to reach out to either all the support group facilitators to ask if anybody has a story they're willing to share about a specific issue, or to ask if they might be interested in having a member of the congressperson's staff come and listen to a support group sometimes, so that staffer could learn more about the challenges facing people, caregivers in the community. We've done that very successfully. But the essential thing is to have it be at a staff level before you go make any contacts with a support group. Unless you're the support group facilitator, in which case you can do that. So Kathy, can you talk a little bit more about how you have built such an amazing relationship with the congressman's staff? I know that when his health staffer left, tell us how you got your foot in the door to identify and build a relationship with a new staff person when you didn't even know who that was.
My initial, when I first became an ambassador and initially went to his office, they had a really terrific young man named Ken who was the healthcare representative. So for several years I met with him and we just clicked. So it was fantastic. You were talking about bringing someone to support group. Ken actually, I just sort of jokingly said one time, you want to hear about Alzheimer's? You should come to my support group. And he texted me the next morning and said, I'm there, just tell me what time. So he was just fantastic. It was such a great meeting with my group. They felt that they were being listened to, and Ken really came away with a much greater awareness of the issues and problems that caregivers have. So I was just sailing along so smoothly. Everything was great. And yeah, he was too good to be true. The congressman moved him to his Washington, D.C. office. So I had to start all over again. And I was not really sure how to do that, since they were not going to hire another person to deal specifically with healthcare. So I hit upon this plan that I didn't want to be in this situation again, where someone that I work with was going to be yanked away and put in Washington, D.C. So I decided I would meet every single person in the office. So I looked up every single person of his staff, and I just called and asked if I could meet with Tracy. And so they said, sure. So I met with Tracy, and I told her I was only going to come in for 5 minutes. I wanted to introduce myself, talk to her just briefly about the Alzheimer's Association, and bring her some materials. Our 5 minutes turned into about an hour, and I felt terrible because I thought, I told her 5 minutes, I'm blowing this, but she was very interested. And when we finished, she said to me, I don't want you to think I'm critiquing you, because it's not a critique, because I really don't critique people, but this is going to sound like it. And she was just laughing and said, I just loved your approach so much, because people come in all the time. Organizations come in, associations, they all want something from us. They're all not just asking, but making demands. And she said, you didn't do that. So I'm really grateful, and I just knew at that moment we had Tracy on board. But more importantly, I also knew that this is how that office worked. And it was kind of how Ken worked. But now I was really sure. So my next adventure was meeting with the next person, who was Bob. Bob was the man behind the desk when you come in. And I knew him by sight, but I didn't really know him. And when I met with him, I found out that he had been a caregiver to his mother. So that was fantastic. I knew we had now Bob on board. He was ready to talk anytime about Alzheimer's. My third contact was with Arturo. And when I did that meeting, I took with us our Latino outreach specialist, and they just clicked right away. And boy, we had information from him regarding the Latino community, and she was invited to go to some of the business meetings. So that was how I started building this team. So once I did all three, then I went back and started all over again. So at this point in time, I can call and actually just say, whoever is available to meet with me, I will meet with them. And oftentimes I might have a meeting with Tracy, but Bob will say, hey, I'm not busy, I'm going to come and sit in with you. So what I was so fearful about in the beginning and concerned that it's going to take me forever to build relationships, it didn't happen. They were all just absolutely wonderful. They're a great staff. I absolutely love them. They're willing to see me pretty much anytime. I can call and say, can I have a meeting next week? And oftentimes they'll say, well, just come in right now. So I think that they're a real reflection of the congressman. I don't meet often with the congressman because his district is so huge. It's about half of the northern part of the state. So he's out on the road a lot. So I really have to have a good relationship with his staff. I think there are three things, if I could just add a few little crazy things. I used to write a lot of letters to the editor and op-eds, and we don't do that anymore because our paper said they want to go in a different direction. So that's been kind of sad that we can't really get letters published anymore. But I used to do that a lot, and then make sure that the congressman's office knew that we had done that. The second thing is cookies. This started quite by accident. I always take dessert to my support group. And one day I had a meeting right after support group with his staff, and I grabbed the extra cookies and took them, and they were quite happy about that. So I decided, well, maybe I'll keep doing that. And that was reinforced by a meeting in the grocery store with Bob about a month after I had done the initial cookie taking over. And he said, you haven't been in the office for a while. And I said, no. And he goes, well, you need to come. And I said, well, okay, I'll make an appointment. And he said, that would be great. And remember to bring the cookies. So every time now that we have a meeting with their staff, I take cookies. I met with them in May, And they delighted us with a presentation of cookies. They gave us cookies for a change, and they were wonderful. They were Oreos that were frosted and had the state seal on. So they thought they were terrific, and they were happy that they could surprise us. The other thing that I think has been really huge with fostering a great relationship with the office is I send a lot of thank you cards, not only to all the individual staff members, but also to Congressman Amadei. A couple of Christmases ago, I got a really nice Christmas card from Congressman Amadei. I knew him, but not well at that point in time. And he sent me this amazing Christmas card with a note in it that said, I was sitting here reading your file, and I thought, wow, I have a file. Who knew? But it contained all the thank you notes that I had sent him over the years. And he was so grateful in his note, saying that it's just a dying art. People don't take the time to send thank yous. So I send lots and lots of thank yous, real thank yous, such as, you are so amazing, or what you do matters. So I have all these little cards that I send not only to the staff and to Congressman Amadei, but also to my support group and to my congressional team. So that's why I say I'm the writer on the team, because I do all of the writing. And the thank yous have become a huge part of our relationship. So that's sort of how I've had a relationship with everyone. I don't know if you want to take questions, but if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Well, Kathy, there's, we're all facing, some changes. So you've done this beautiful job of cultivating these face-to-face relationships, and now all of a sudden we can't do that anymore. And so I wonder if you can share with us, how you're thinking about during a pandemic, when we are not asking volunteers to do in-person meetings until it's safe. Have you given any thought to how are you going to keep these wonderful relationships alive until you can see people again?
Honestly, I was trying not to think about that. I thought the light at the end of the tunnel will be September. I don't know. I sort of just figured after the summer, this virus would die down and things would go back to normal. But I think we're all beginning to realize that it's not going back to normal in September. The cases are rising in Nevada. So I am just now trying to let go of what I had hoped was my light at the end of the tunnel, because I think we're all creatures of habit, and this is how I do things. And I'm going to have to change, and change is hard. What are we going to do to maintain relationships? First, I feel really confident that the relationships we have, both with Congressman Amadei and with his staff, are really, really strong. If I didn't see them for a year, I think we would just laugh and pick up right where we left off. But I know that that's not how advocacy is done. So we are going to have to figure out ways to connect. So I'm thinking at this point, I'm still holding on a little bit to some of my old ways. Obviously, the thank you cards are going to become miss you cards. And put notes and information in if I need to. We'll still do phone calls and emails. He's on Twitter and Facebook, obviously, so we'll do those. So I'm still holding on to a little of those. We have a terrific social media person, so I think a lot will fall on her, perhaps making videos, maybe saying we miss you and we appreciate all that you do for us on photos. So we'll utilize her. I'm just starting to learn about some of the new ways we can conduct business, such as maybe we can do a Google alert. So I'm open to suggestions. I really think it's going to take a community of advocates really brainstorming and trying things out and seeing what works and what doesn't work, and then sharing those things with all of us. I'm certainly open to ideas because I need ideas at this point. It's hard to let go. I'm working on it. I will let go of some of these things, but and adopt new things. But yeah, anyone who's got suggestions, I'm
Yeah.
ready to go.
Well, I think, I think we're learning that we're all going to have to learn some new digital advocacy tools, and the people who are really, really good at that are young people. And so that's another form of diversity on our teams to be looking for the folks who are most comfortable in that digital world. What about, I see Susan put in the chat any ideas from participants about new approaches in this virtual world we're all in. Please, share your ideas for great tactics. Letters to the editor. Kathy, you write great letters to the editor, and I know you have used to get them published, but that's changing too as the media landscape changes. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's been a huge disappointment for me. I regularly wrote letters. For those of you, most of you don't know me. I was a caregiver for a very, very long time with my mother. My mother had the disease for 25 years, and I took over her care in 1997, and she just passed away last year. So I had a well of my own stories as well as those of my support group. So I never was at a loss, particularly for writing letters. I could talk about all sorts of things. And as I said originally, I got this communication with the editor of the newspaper saying we're going in a different direction. We want basically controversial letters. We don't want informational letters. He said, you write great informational letters. You've written great op-eds, but we're not doing that anymore. We're going in a different direction. I don't know how to make Alzheimer's controversial. It's just not. It's more informational. So it's been really a challenge. He took my last op-ed and told me he would publish it if I made it a letter to the editor instead. So I did cut a lot of it, and he did. But that was the last one that I ever had published, and that was about maybe 2.5 years ago. So that asset is not available to us. I would be willing to try again, but I'm not thinking that's going to really happen. Electronic media is probably going to be the best way to get things out now. Amity has such a huge district that it could really actually be beneficial to be able to connect with constituents out there, certainly connecting with him or with his staff that way. I'm just, as I say, learning about Google Alert, learning about Patch. Again, it's going to be utilizing ideas that people might come up with to stay in contact. It's a hard question.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
we're just beginning this process because we've used these other things for so long. I'm starting to think about it, and it kind of makes me crazy because I feel like I need so much more education. I need to know more what's out there because that social media hasn't really been my thing, electronic media. Yeah, it's. I think again, this community of advocates are going to have to help each other.
And that is a great line for how we're hoping to move forward with the teams and team planning for FY21. Like let's look at what are some of the new challenges we're facing, and where do we need help? Because we can tap people who may have expertise in digital media or in video, other tools, and we will all be learning together, I think, in this new normal. So thank you, Kathy, for being a really fantastic advocate and ambassador and support group facilitator and really an all-around Alzheimer's advocate, and for being willing to think with us today, to share with us what you've been doing and think with us about some of the ways that we're going to need to evolve in the year ahead, so we can keep moving our policy agenda forward. So Susan, let me hand it back to you. Well, let's open it up and see if there are any questions or comments from people on the line, and then I'll hand it back to Susan.
Okay, I don't know if we had two suggestions. Mark White said he has used thank you notes, and I know he has, for just about everything, and now he wants to add cards for issues. That's a good idea. And Bob Panzer said one idea would be to interview an APS line worker or maybe a district attorney about experiences with elder abuse. So bringing in a different or a new voice or perspective to strengthen the volunteer advocates. Thank you, Bob and Mark. Any other thoughts that anyone wants to share? And if you see my head, I'm bobbing between two computers, so that's why my head's bouncing around. But that looks like it for the questions in the chat right now, Jessica.
Well, okay. Well, you know, we had set this session up at the beginning of the academy, and then we learned that the planning process was going to change at the national level, and we also had a really thought-provoking meeting with our counterpart policy staff colleagues in Illinois just on Monday. And so we're all learning together about how to move forward. So I really appreciate everybody for joining today. I hope you learned something new, and big thanks to you, Kathy, again, for being willing to share what you're doing and what you're thinking about for this coming year.
Thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it. As I was telling Susan earlier, I'm just really grateful for this Alzheimer's Academy. It's been interesting and amazing, and I feel like I am so much more connected now with all of these advocates across our states. I think that there's no act of advocacy that is too small. Every email, every tweet, every card lays that foundation upon which others will stand. All the philanthropists, the researchers, the legislators who will provide the money and the research and the legislation that will really end this disease. So I'm so grateful to all of you advocates and to all of you who've worked with me for providing hope that we really will end this disease, even if we're in the middle of a different disease now and not thinking as much about Alzheimer's, but it's out there and I'm hopeful. So I'm so happy to have been here and connected with all of you. Thank you.
Kathy, thank you so much. Jessica, thank you. We had a couple more comments in the queue. One of the questions from Lee, is it true that there will be no person-to-person contact with Alzheimer's staff members until there is a vaccine? How realistic is that? So to answer your question, partially answer your question there, Lee, for the time being, all Alzheimer's Association employees have been asked to work from home, and we were just told last week that that will go on likely until there is a vaccine or a treatment. We don't know what that means in terms of public policy, district office meetings, state advocacy days, and the forum. We're really taking that week by week and looking at public health guidance and the science first and foremost. So I can tell you that if there are any changes, you'll be the first to hear about it. Certainly you're volunteers and you're not under the same constraints as staff, but your health and safety is as important as staff health and safety. So we will get some guidance out to all of you on what that looks like in the coming months. But for now, our staff are not visiting the legislature, whether that's in Washington, D.C., at Capitol Hill, or in the 4 states that are represented on this call. We are doing everything by phone, email, Zoom, Blue Jeans, Twitter, social media, and also many offices are doing the same. There are a lot of constraints and restrictions offices too. So more on that. We also had a request from Mark White, and I'm really glad he asked about last week's episode. For all of you who wonder what happened to the mysterious episode last week, we discovered that when we set this up a few months ago, it was there was an expiration date, and we didn't know that because we are learning as we go, just as you are. And the Blue Jeans platform is new to us, and we had been on a 90-day cycle that had expired without our knowledge. So, Mark, I can tell you that we will, this is the final session of our fiscal year. As Jessica said, we finish up June 30th, and for the association at least, July 1 starts a new year. So we have plans with your participation and your ideas to continue the Alzheimer's Academy. And we'll be sending out a survey after this, not immediately after this, but in the next couple of days. And we'll be asking for your thoughts on what's helpful. We'll ask how frequently should these be held? Is 12 noon to 1 the best time? What are some topics that you'd like to hear about? Or maybe topics we explored already, but you want more detail. And so, Mark, that session that we had to cancel last week will be reoffered in the new fiscal year, and it will be part of the new schedule. We're also migrating from the Blue Jeans platform that you're on today to Zoom. So there will be a new round of calendar invites. You'll have that. It will be much simpler for you to log into the Zoom meetings than it is for Blue Jeans. And when we hear from you about the frequency and the time of day and the day of the week, then we'll get all of that out to you. And we promise you we'll reoffer the session that was planned for last week. And let's see, trying to see if I missed anything else in the queue. But when we started this back in March, it's just a reminder that everybody can participate in AAIC this year. You can join for one session, all of the sessions. I think we have I heard maybe 7,000 people have already registered. And we want to hear from you. So we want to hear about topics that you want to explore. And also when you get your survey, if there's anything, we really want to thank Kathy today, but through the course of this academy, we've involved more than a dozen volunteer advocates showcasing best practices. So if there's something you want to share and you'd like to be a presenter, please put that on your survey too. When we started this back in March, we wanted to run till the end of the fiscal year, sort of like a quarter system. And so today is our graduation day. So just like kindergartners and high school students and college students around the country, we have to do a virtual graduation ceremony too. So congratulations, caps off and hats off to all of you that participated. We had over 1,500. We keep account of all of these, and some of our sessions had as many as 250 participants, and all of them averaged over 75. So we touched base with about 1,500 of you over the last couple of months. And we're going to keep it going in the new fiscal year. So watch for that survey, and then you'll get a calendar invite probably about mid-July asking you to re-up for the new fiscal year. So Kathy and Jessica, thank you again today. And to our staff around the James Fitzpatrick in Arizona and Nevada, Josh Bohannon in San Diego, parts of San Bernardino, Southern California, Daniel Gaitan in Orange County and parts of LA, Central Coast, Ian Ross in Hawaii, Jessica Rothar from Northern California, Northern Nevada, Nicole Dalsky, who's on maternity leave with her handsome little boy, Jack, and Veronica Meach, who will be returning to us in July. I think that covers all of our staff, and thank you to all of you who tuned in, listened in, and contributed to these sessions. We'll be back in touch early July. Bye-bye. Thank you all.